you let them know it's supporting the funnel. It doesn't always close the sale, but it influences perception. It drives action, I think, that impacts bookings long term. You're building a brand, you're solidifying your brand, you're making sure your brand is top of mind. And I think framing it this way builds trust and understanding that they might not always see the numbers, the correct conversion of what they're looking for, but you see the awareness piece growing. You see that your social media is increasing that engagement and you see it playing a part in all your other functions of the business.
This is Social Pulse Podcast. Social media simplified, impact amplified. Each week, we equip social media professionals like you with actionable strategies and diverse insights from peers, experts, and leading platforms. It's all about empowering you to simplify the complex and make a real impact with your host, Mike Alton. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Social Pulse Podcast, where we're digging into the challenges, the successes, and the stories of social media and community professionals in the industry, just like you. Subscribe to gain valuable insights that you'll be able to apply to your own work and social presence from each and every episode. Now, in today's digital landscape, hospitality marketers face an impossible seeming challenge. Create content that stands out in crowded feeds, captures the unique essence of your property, and oh, by the way, it needs to deliver measurable business results. Many social media managers feel torn between their creative instincts and the pressure to report hard numbers. Should you prioritize beautiful, aspirational content that reflects your brand vision, or focus on what the analytics say will perform best? This tension leaves many hospitality marketers feeling frustrated, wondering if they're truly making an impact or just posting into the void. And that's why we're thrilled to welcome LaRhonda Strong to the show today. As a dynamic hospitality marketing leader with over a decade of experience driving brand growth across multiple properties, LaRhonda has mastered the delicate balance between creative storytelling and data-driven results. Currently overseeing marketing for a multi-property portfolio of Peachtree Group Hospitality Management, she brings invaluable insights on building integrated campaigns that don't just look good, but actually convert. A proud Howard University alum and committed mentor, LaRhonda represents the best of what strategic hospitality marketing can achieve. Hey, LaRhonda, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for that intro, Mike. Definitely summed up, I think, my long years of experience in the hospitality industry.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you. I'd love if you could start by just sharing that journey in hospitality marketing and how you kind of developed your approach to balancing creativity with analytics.
Yeah, I think I started. So most of my career has a strong foundation in brand storytelling and public relations, where I got my degree in. And I had, by chance, the jobs were there. I moved over to the hospitality side on the operational standpoint. I learned all I could at the property level, but I noticed where I can dive into marketing and where I was able to actually get myself promoted was I was able to join in and help them with their storytelling through reviews, which moved into social media as it continued to grow. So, a big part of that, I learned the balance of the creative content showcasing what the hotel has to offer while delivering results with our data analytics through the different tools that we've used over the years. So, whether it's increased bookings or F&B revenue or just a stronger event conversion, that is kind of where I've really pushed my specialty to be. I think developing that framework where creativity and analytics aren't really opposing forces, but they actually inform each other. I believe that just really gives you to serve a purpose and it empowers creatives, not restricts them.
Love it. Love it. And tell us a bit about Peachtree Group.
Yeah, Peachtree Group. So it's really a finance company, but we have a hospitality management division. We have about 120 hotels right now in our portfolio, and it goes from small lifestyle brands to select service. And we just really take those, bring them up to standard, do a great conversion, and implement all those important marketing, sales, revenue statistics. So it's my job to make sure we're storytelling and showing that the hotel has to offer through our social media.
Love it. Love it. So when it comes to that kind of social media content, what's the biggest misperception that you see about the relationship between creative content and measurable results that you've been talking about?
I think the biggest misconception is that performance means compromising the quality of what you put out. People assume that, if something performs well, it's just off brand or it's clickbait or you're just strictly kind of using a data full approach. But I think successful content aligns with excellence from, creativity, but you're using those data insights to make sure you're reaching your campaign goals. So overall, you can reflect the tone, aesthetic, and experience of your brand, but that data should empower you to understand what your actual goal is and what the results will be. Sometimes it's not always a ROI, it's a brand awareness, but that data should empower you to become more creative.
Absolutely. That's a kind of a recurring theme, I think, on this show, particularly when it comes to hospitality management. It's challenging, I think, to demonstrate any true ROI in particularly in hotels when that's the kind of a brand that you're trying to talk about on social media. It's not often that someone's going to book a night at a hotel just because they happen to see them on Facebook. But I'm wondering how you approach building a content strategy for these properties that you're working with, and then trying to come up with that balance where you're satisfying creative vision and business objectives.
Yeah, I think you start, overall, do you have a shared goal? I think you kind of figure out, okay, if we're going to do bookings, we know that everyone that clicks on the link isn't going to book, but are we putting in that brand awareness? Are we making it visually appealing so it stays top of mind? Are we something, hey, when I go on vacation or the next time I go to that particular area of the hotel, I'm going to stay there. Maybe I'll pop in for a drink and check it out that way. The idea is to really take those 2 things and balance them well. It should be a visual or masterpiece as well, but are you actually pushing the campaigns? Are the analytics driving to say that people are coming back and click? Are we retargeting people that way? Are they lingering on your page and are they engaging with your content? Engagement doesn't tell the entire story, but if you see someone asking questions, asking for a little more, that kind of tells you that they're reading the content. There might not be a clear communication, but something else needs to come, or they just might like to comment and be a part of that brand. So I think it's important that you play it off of each other, that you have the fun visual side, but you also make sure you take that data analytics and you are your driving force to your goal.
You're so right, and it's kind of funny because this show is kind of like a microcosm. I'm bringing on folks like you who are teaching the audience how they're doing marketing, but at the same time, you're introducing your brand. So I'm learning about new hotels and destinations all the time on this show, and I'm making a mental note. Oh, okay. When I'm in Atlanta, I need to stop there. When I'm in Tempe,
Mhm.
Arizona, I need to stop there. And so that awareness, it works. And it's something I'm going to be very acutely aware of as I go forward. But you talk about looking at analytics. I'm wondering if you could walk us through maybe a specific example where those analytics, those data insights maybe shifted or impacted your creative approach and what the results were.
Yeah, I would say in actually one of my previous positions, we had a really good I think social media was great, some good content, but I noticed that the repurposed content wasn't refreshed. It had the standard likes, but there was no spike. There was less and less comments. And I realized taking that data, kind of seeing where the driving force, we had a lot of international people viewing our things. So I did a day in a life series with our chef. I repurposed the content to reflect, for example, Atlanta was one of my markets. Atlanta has a very diverse culture here. I changed the lifestyle images to reflect the culture of the city. No, when you're using pictures of people, you have to think about everything that goes along with it. Does it look like the people that are in the area? Does it look like, you might have your business casual going to happy hour? Are you having your casual people walking through to check out the different local attractions? So I wanted to speak to the actual city, and that is how I approach with all my hotels. Are we reflecting what they'll get when they come to this particular area at this hotel? And I think the data drives that. It can kind of tell you your markets, your cities. You can even drill down on how you look at to the age range, the gender. So you kind of look at that, and you usually can reflect sometimes on the likes and just kind of browse and see when you work alongside with your sales and revenue people, what kind of business are we getting? This is where the cross functional piece comes in. They can tell you a lot about the market because they live and breathe it from a number standpoint, but also the groups that we're getting. So I think it's important that you pull in cross functionally with everyone else, including that data, and you will get everything a real world picture of what you should be targeting.
That is such great advice. It's true for every industry, every marketing approach, but I think it's particularly true with hospitality. You've got to make sure that your marketing materials and assets reflect the audience that you're trying to talk to at any given moment and recognize
Mhm.
that that will change and not every post is going to be targeting the same exact audience. But I'm wondering, as you talk about metrics and analytics, are there any particular metrics that you're looking at that you think are most valuable when trying to evaluate social media performance?
Yeah, we look at so MetaSuite is a big one for us. We have our Google Analytics. We definitely have, our sprinkler and the different tools overall. So I think using those different and we actually do look at our SEO words and see what is best performing. And I use that and I think to create content as well. All of that plays a part. I think pulling those MetaSuite analytics, the base level of them are pretty great. If you go into pulling a targeted ad, it'll get a little more statistics for you. But I also think pulling some of those, I pull those sales metrics. I talk to the sales team. I think seeing what the group leads are, who's kind of looking at that is another piece. So you have your transient business and hospitality, and then you have your group. But I think they play off of each other because some people enjoy coming back. They might bring their family. So I think overall using the different tools, so like Google, Meta, and of course those social media, HubSpot and those really work well. You just have to see what works best. Because I've noticed with a huge portfolio, you'll find some statistics better in certain parts of the business. So let's say our Meta Suite will perform better in some of our actual regional places. And in others, I will see, okay, well, this is great. I think, I've seen it where HubSpot had some good analytics there. So I think utilizing one tool, one size fits all doesn't necessarily work as well. I think you need to check out your many different things when you have a large portfolio. If you have the smaller one and two hotels, big ones, you're able to drill down a little bit more. But when you're talking about a large portfolio of hotels, I think you need to kind of see which tools work best. And this is where a team comes in. So you're not the only one kind of pulling those statistics.
I think that is such an insightful comment because I think most social media managers are going to be focused on the social platforms and not paying so much attention to Google Analytics or sales dashboards. And they're missing an opportunity to learn more about the core prospects for the business, not necessarily just the people who happen to be following you online, figuring out what they learn. By paying attention to these other sources, you can learn not only what topics, but the language that your target prospects are actually using to describe what they're interested in, their experiences. Folks, we're talking with LaRhonda Strong about developing a winning strategy for social media marketing. In a moment, we're going to talk about managing expectations. But first, let's make sure you and your team have the bandwidth you need to work on more creative campaigns.
When I take a look at the biggest core benefit for Agorapulse, I have to look at two sides of the equation. I have to look at what it does for us as far as managing our community and all of the conversation management tools, which I appreciate so much. But from a far more pragmatic point of view, it saves us money. It saves us a lot of money because of the productivity features that are built in with how it manages those conversations. We don't waste time. We're efficient.
Agorapulse allows me to get through all my messages and my replies really quickly. That's probably the number one reason for me wanting to use the tool. It saves so much time.
A big draw for me with Agorapulse was the ability to manage my YouTube comments. That is a huge feature for me, and here's why. Because up until then, I basically would have to go into my social media manager system to do everything there, and then I'd have to log out, go back into YouTube, and do the same thing there. Now, when you are managing multiple clients, this becomes a huge waste of time, right? And what we want to do is streamline that efficiency. So we can log into one website now. We can manage all of our major social profiles there, and we're able to serve our clients with more clarity and purpose.
They worked with us, they helped train us on how to get everything up and going, and we were able to cancel out all the other tools that we didn't need anymore. So it saved us a lot of time and a lot of headache for my team members as they're, now they only have one tool that they can maximize their clientele.
So, LaRhonda, I said the S word, stakeholders. How do you manage stakeholder expectations, particularly when it comes to social media performance? You've got executives, I'm sure, focused primarily on bookings and revenue. How do you juggle all that?
Yeah, I think important question here. Stakeholders vary, right? You have your internal stakeholders, your external, you have your ownership group. So there's quite a lot of important people that want input or have expectations on you. So I think you meet them where they are. You connect the dots. You lead by saying, the top line business results, but you compare it with a narrative saying, the campaign drove this percentage to the landing page and it supported a lift in group leads, or we saw an event had so many RSVPs by the deadline. I think proactively setting those expectations really gets you ahead. And then you give the progress, you show the way, you pretty much show your progress through there. You let them know it's supporting the funnel. It doesn't always close the sale, but it influences perception, it drives action, I think, that impacts bookings long term. You're building a brand, you're solidifying your brand, you're making sure your brand is top of mind. And I think framing it this way builds trust and understanding that they might not always see the numbers, the correct conversion of what they're looking for, but you see the awareness piece growing. You see that your social media is increasing that engagement and you see it playing a part in all your other functions of the business.
That's so smart. Now, earlier you mentioned your team, and I wanted to follow up and ask you,
Yeah.
just could you share what your team makeup looks like? How big is your team? What are the kinds of roles that you guys are handling right now?
Yeah, so we have pretty much we have a digital marketing, and it kind of we work hand in hand, and we have our graphic designer as well, and our brand design manager, and we all play a part, right? So our digital managers are kind of monitoring those OTAs as well as the social media. But you have your graphic designer and your brand design manager going in and saying, "Hey, I need this to look a certain way. I kind of want when you go down your tile of your social media is going this way. But also, when we're coming up with those assets to match the caption, are they telling the story? Is there something more we can push? Are we going to go more of the brand way or are we going to go more of the live content way with the hotel? And we also, important piece I forgot to add earlier is having that input from the hotel itself. If you're at the hotel level, you are part of that hotel. But when you're above property, you're corporate, you have a bigger portfolio, but it is mandatory that you have that hotel putting their input. They're uploading those assets and posting from the ground. So your brand looks like in your hotel, you can tell this is not just curated content, but this is something organic. This is live. We're getting special behind the scenes features. Our chef is posting dishes as they create them. We're seeing the bartenders creating, unique monthly cocktails. My important piece, and I've seen that grown over my time here, is making sure those hotels are included and they are participating. They have their input, and we're also in curating that with a brand that we're very knowledgeable about. So I think playing together, you will increase your social media presence strongly.
Yeah, they're basically an extension of your team and vice versa, which I love.
Yes,
That's a fantastic approach. So,
yes.
what creative processors or workflows have you implemented then to help your team integrate some of the data insights and analytics that you talked about before while maintaining some semblance of creative freedom?
Yeah, so we have our monthly recaps, I think is very important. You build confidence through A/B testing and you report that out. I think that's an important workflow. And you have those regular meetings with the hotel, as I said. We have content calendars. We try to do it 90 days out and create it already that has a certain amount of content. They come in, they add their piece as well. They give us the assets and they do the live content in between. So I think just having regular meetings with all parties involved, creating flexible templates is important too as well. The hotels are quite busy. They keep going. So making sure they have everything they need to help you post, but they're not having to start from scratch. We don't want to always reinvent the wheel, but we want to create fresh and new exciting content based on what we already have. So I think that workflow of regularly meeting as a team, regularly meeting with the hotel, and just trying to keep that 90 days out. And I know as marketers, we are always trying to be ahead of the curve, but it's very important that your content is laid out and you have a variable use of assets ready for your use.
That makes a lot of sense. And one of the other things I've been thinking about as you've been talking is the fact that you said a couple of times you're managing a portfolio of properties, which I'm assuming then that changes over time. So sometimes you've got new properties that are coming on, or maybe it's a new campaign where you want to launch some content and there's no historical data that you can learn from. So how do you balance coming up with some new approaches versus trying to rely on the proven formulas from the past data?
Yeah, we don't have historical data. We're starting with the A/B testing. We're going to try out a few things as well. But we also talk to, for example, my company acquires hotels quite a bit. We move things around and assets like that. This is where you talk to the team. You make sure in that turnover portfolio, you have things that you need. But if there's nothing there and you're completely starting from scratch, this is where you pull out, your specialty of knowing the brand. You pull out that proven, opening template, that renovation template, or that new acquired template, and we're starting from there. So we're going to lay out kind of, those regular hotel assets. You're showcasing amenities, guest rooms, but what do you have in their team members? This is where you have a great operational staff. They might let you know on a regular, like, hey, we have a happy hour that a certain amount of people come in every time our bartender comes up with new things. So I think it's a matter of we have our proven strategies already in place, but when you're starting with scratch, this is where you can flex your creative muscles and see what really works. But a big part of that, as I mentioned before, is working with your sales and revenue leaders. They've done the research of the market. When we acquire new hotels, the salesperson has to do the research so they know how to properly support their on-site sales staff. This is where you collaborate with them. So regardless, somebody has a background of that area to inform us to what's the best way to kind of target our target audience.
I'm so impressed with how much detail and thought went into these processes, making sure that somebody's doing their research and their homework, but you've also got that documentation in place that says, look, these are the different angles that we're going to work on as soon as we have a new property or renovated property or whatever. You've already thought about that because those are scenarios that you know are going to come
Yes.
up at some point in the future. So I'm wondering, LaRhonda, when it comes to social media, one of the challenges, like we've kind of hinted around it already in this conversation, with hospitality in particular, is that we don't typically drive direct sales, not like retail. It's usually very clear cut there. We're posting about the products and driving sales. How do you currently measure the business impact of social media?
Well, we track campaign specific conversions, clicks to booking pages to RSVP for events. A big one for us is our programming events. For example, with Easter, we really had a high goal. We had a group in house the year before, so it was a little bit lower. So we were targeting our 2023 goal, and we blew that 2023, I'm sorry, goal out of the water by 126% year over year. We got in front of our group of people early. We started earlier this year. We tag teamed with our Mother's Day promotion. So we had, collateral that was handed out by the sales team to the local community that had one side Mother's Day, the other side Easter. We kept posting. We went back and forth. We used real estate of the Facebook page. People don't change their cover photos. This is something I learned from a leader. Change that cover photo to match what you have upcoming. So a big measurement for us is how people are RSVPing, how many people show up, how many conversions do you have? And then we saw an increased engagement. People were asking questions. They asked if they could extend hours because they were going to church. I mean, these are all important things and metrics, I think, that really feeds into how we track. So we do have our campaign specific feedback that we look for in results. We track those numbers. Those are very important. But a big part of it is, did you get the goal of what you were seeking? Did you get the people to come to the event? Did you increase your room nights over a certain period of time? And you do see that when you actually go ahead and engage well.
Love that. I love that you're leveraging the features within the platforms that are there and often free to use, changing the cover photos. Brilliant. I always recommend folks use the Facebook event feature, whether it's
Yes,
for happy hours, a weekly event, or for a special occasion like Easter, because Facebook will surface that in
yes,
local users' feeds. I saw plenty of Easter brunch opportunities in Facebook because those restaurants had taken the time to create, or those hotels, if they were having an event, they took the time to create a Facebook event, which was free and took them moments. So folks don't miss out on those opportunities. Are there
agreed.
any other tools or resources that you rely on to kind of help bridge that gap between creative content creation and performance analytics in your day-to-day work?
I think a big one is actually so Sprinkler and a couple companies like that. This is more they track engagement, and of course, Meta has those insights. But I also this might be a little controversial, but different. Following those trends, we don't react to trends. We don't post to trends. TikTok, I'm not always sure is our best audience in hospitality, depending from a brand perspective. Yes, but from a hotel individual, it's a little different. You depending on the size of your hotel. But I also think just making sure you are following the trends and knowing what is going along with the algorithm, right? You don't want to get shadow banned. You don't want to miss out. So I think a little bit of course, we use our metas, as I said, our Sprout socials, our HubSpot. But a big one is there's trend reports that come out quarterly, weekly, yearly. I definitely go through. I have people that work in social media on the side. They do things and they always are up on the algorithm. So I make sure I'm as well. So I know what I'm doing with our content isn't going to get lost in the shuffle. Do we adjust to everything? That's absolutely not the best practice, and that is not a good strategy. But you have to understand what you're up against, especially with an ever changing landscape.
So, just to clarify for those listening, when you talk about trends, you aren't talking about user zeitgeist meme type of trends. You're talking about what seems to be working today with the
Yes.
various social platforms that professionals have recognized and shared publicly.
Yes, like video. We don't always post a lot of video. That takes I think a little bit sometimes you can get lost in there, but it's important to know that carousel is important. If you have something you're regularly putting at a campaign, should we consider this? Overly branded content with a lot of words and graphics don't pick up well when you post that as well. You use that for your caption. Leave a lot of the words to the caption. So I'm talking about those type of trends that actually work against or with the algorithm. It's important to know because otherwise your great efforts are going to get lost in the shuffle. They might not visually get in front of people. I'm big on, as I mentioned before, including the hotel, and they utilize the IG stories. They're live. They can post in that 24-hour window. That is important because sometimes things do not get picked up on the feed as they should. But that IG story, when it's coming from the ground, that is that organic, that is that fun content I think is important. And of course, as I said, relying on your cross functional team. This is not part of the actual social media strategy, but just being informed of what you should be targeting. I think that's a big miss that I've seen before when I've come in. I'm like, no, I need to have conversations with our revenue team. What are they seeing on their numbers? What are they seeing as a pickup? Even with transient, they can kind of drill in and see, hey, this is the time of year that we see more of a pickup. This is where we need to target heavier. We're already working at the end of the year, thanks to a great revenue partner of mine telling me that fall is looking a little light. What can we do? And we start those numbers earlier. So I think playing is with those tools that you can get from any tool, any analytics, but also you get from your partners and as well as using the hotels who are there and they know the market as well. I think all together, those are what I consider my tools and my assets to really get things empowered.
That's awesome. And I love that we're ending with some really, really tactical, strategic advice for folks. I appreciate that. LaRhonda, you've been amazing. This has been such an important interview. I know folks are going to go back and re-listen to it to really digest your advice when it comes to analytics and balancing that with creativity. But for folks who have more questions or they want to reach out and connect with you, where should they go?
Yeah, you can search me, LaRhonda Strong, my LinkedIn. That's the best way to get in contact on me. I'm always on there reading up on the latest industry news, staying in the know. So definitely send me a message on there. I do read them and I do connect with people. But I appreciate your time so much, Mike. This has been an engaging conversation. It's always fun to talk about marketing and social media.
It is always fun. So thank you, LaRhonda. Thank all of you for listening. That's all the time we've got for today, friends. But don't forget to find the Social Pulse podcast on Apple and drop me a review. Let me know what you thought of this episode and what you'd like to see us cover in future episodes. Until next time. And that's a wrap for this episode of Social Pulse Podcast, hosted by Mike Alton and powered by Agorapulse, your social media success partner, helping you simplify your daily tasks and improve your ROI. You can learn more and grab a trial at agorapulse.com. If you found today's conversation valuable, please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and we'd be so grateful if you'd leave us a review. For more great content and to join our Social Pulse community, head over to facebook.com/Social Pulse Community. Until next time, remember, social media simplified, impact amplified.